Welcome, guys, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2, the 1% Club. We are going to continue with our review of the book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this way, we're going to talk about the fifth step towards riches called imagination. Before we do that, please subscribe, comment. I get a lot of great comments. Pump20 gave me a good compliment the last video I did about riches. And once again, we're saying that it's important to use money as a tool. It's not your end all, right? You should not be defined by this, but you want to be able to create money when you need to. And I think that's the important thing. But don't let money become your love. Allow it to become a tool that you can use in different ways. So this chat talks about two types of imagination. Now, imagination is something you're using from your brain. And synthetic imagination is the first one. And he says, through this faculty, one may arrange old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. You're not really creating a lot of things. You're using things you have to create goals and try to create different types of ideas that can actually help you accomplish your goals, okay? It is what Napoleon Hill says, it's the faculty that's used most by inventors, okay? So unless a person is a genius coming up with a great idea out of the blue, most of it's a combination of things that you've had before. You're just putting them rearranging order. And this happens a lot. And this is why a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge are able to come up with new ideas, because they're not creating it out of thin air. They're using a lot of things from different past experiences and putting them together and trying to create that goal. And so that's why it's important to focus on a goal. As you're focusing on that goal, now you're able to bring in all the different types of past experiences to kind of say, okay, what similar energy can I use to kind of hit this goal? And that's what he's talking about. The second one is called creative imagination. And he says, through the faculty of creative imagination, the finite mind of man has direct communication with the infinite intelligence. Now, Napoleon Hill uses infinite intelligence. I think he didn't actually want to put God in there because he knows a lot of people have different religious beliefs. But this is kind of what he's talking about. The creator, the person who has created you, has a voice within you, and you're a co-creator in my viewpoint, okay? It's the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received, and it is by this faculty that all basic new ideas are handed over to man, okay? And so you're tuning in to that voice within you, and this is why meditation, prayer, those things are important. So the great leaders of business, industry, finance, artists, musicians, poets, writers, they all come from this area, okay? And he's actually just kind of talking about using the focus to actually kind of put your goal together and use your imagination to come up with ways to kind of do that. He says a law that leads to fortunes. He says desire is where you start with thought impulse. What is your desire? Your desire is to make $1 million. Your desire is to have a six-pack of abs. What is it you're trying to build? And that's what we talk about. Now, he gives a great example of this imagination when he talked about how Coca-Cola was developed. And he says that, many, many years ago, a person had a kettle, and they started with a kettle, and after a little while, little by little, it went from the southern cities into different types of other areas, and there was something that was built in there, and it was a soda, which something they didn't have, and they created something like this that created a lot of employment for people. And he talks about that this type of thing was given to a person with a scrap of paper and a kettle. And they were supposed to brewing this new type of thing that people would like. And so it ended up being Coca-Cola. So he talks about that whole idea, and it came out of just imagination. People thought that way, right? And that's what he's talking about in this type of thing. And, he's also saying, what would I do is have $1 million? He had a good example of a person who was trying to start a college and kind of had the idea and tried to push that with other people. And he eventually got the idea through through a lot of ideas and going over and over again. So the key, guys, is imagination is really something you can use when you're going over and over with in your mind. So how does this affect retention again? We're talking about getting away from thinking about women, and if you're a male, and if you're a female, thinking away from thinking about males, and focusing on your goals. And why I say that is those other things will come to you, guys, but you got to use your brain and imagination to actually think about going ahead and focusing on what you want to achieve. This is how your mind can now focus. And as I said in the previous video, I've had 515 days, and I think it's 40 days of monk mode. And you get to the point of saying, okay, I'm not really even thinking about that. Now, again, today, unbelievable benefits that I found. Again, people are just so much nicer. I had a phone conversation. It just was wonderful. I was talking to somebody and just thanked them for letting me cross the street when they were doing construction work. And it was just an unbelievable reaction. You notice these things. And I notice a lot of women talking to me, coming up to me, asking me who I am, all those type of things. That never used to happen. That never used to happen. And it's very flattering. Not that I really care that much about it, but I notice it because it's something you notice because of what you're on. You're focusing on a longer term goal. And so therefore, if women want to come along with you, great. If they don't, well, they're going to move on to something else. But you are not going to be releasing energy and wasting your time on this. And like I said, the only time you do that is if you find somebody and you want to have children and you basically are at the point where you want to start a family. That to me is the appropriate time. All these other types of things, you need to be using your energy. And I know this is a pretty radical thought, and my 1%ers know how important that is with brahmacharya and sophism and things that we've talked about. But the idea, guys, is that we have to conserve that God-given energy we have and not just waste it away. And this is not perfect, but you got to keep thinking and making a lifestyle change in that. And this is where you can actually turn that imagination into money, and that's what he's talking about here. Okay, so we talk about this type of thing, and he's talked about this in many types of things, but he ends this chapter by saying ideas are intangible forces. So your energy is creating an idea, right? But they have more power than the physical brains that give birth to them. So it's your desire to achieve and it's your desire to then create the goals that are going to make, in this case, money or any other type of goal you want. Health, wealth, benefits, those type of things, right? They have the power to live on after the brain that creates them has returned to dust. So the ideas continue on. Just look, for example, as the plane. The Wright brothers developed a plane, I think, in 1903, okay? They're long passed away, but the plane's still around, right? Look at the phonograph. Now, this was developed by Edison, I think, in the early 1900s. So the phonograph, you probably don't know, some of you guys don't know. Phonograph then turned into a record player, which we still have. It's been a comeback on the vinyl stuff's come back. And that's turned into cassettes and 8-tracks and all kinds of computer types of things, the music that we have, right? And that was something created back then. Light, for instance. Look at light, Edison developed light. And look at where it's gone. Edison's long passed away, but the idea is still there. All the things around us, guys, were created by ideas and the desire of the person to follow through with it. And when you look at people like Tesla and you look at people like Edison and Einstein and these people, they didn't have time to sit around worried about, watching images on a screen. They had no time for that stuff. They were so enthralled in trying to gain their goals and their intentions and inventions and their life's purpose. They had no time for this other kind of stuff. Now, that made them hugely attractive, but they didn't waste their time on this. And you shouldn't either. You should be focusing on some burning desire you have that you want to achieve something. I don't care what that is. That could be money. That could be health. That could be building something. It could be hobbies, whatever it is. Focus on that enough, and you realize it's the focus, the desire, the idea that makes all the difference in the world. And from that, is something that will never go away. And that's going to pass on to your kids and your family throughout. And guys, that's the key to being successful. Desire, focus. And it doesn't talk about necessarily wealth, because once again, money is a tool. But it does help you achieve goals and puts you in the right perspective. All right, enough with this chapter. We'll go into the next chapter next time. Until next time, guys, keep focusing, battle on. Do not let people take your energy away. Battle on.